Helena Trenwall's dining room always smelled like disappointment and overpriced candles. I sat at the far end of her mahogany table, watching my wife Lara arrange herself like a magazine cover next to her mother. Thanksgiving at the Trenwall estate, my personal version of waterboarding with turkey and small talk. "Hayes, dear," Helena's voice dripped with the kind of sweetness that preceded poison. "How's that little job of yours going? Still moving boxes around?" I set down my fork and met her gaze. "Logistics supervisor, Helena. I coordinate supply chains for 3 manufacturing plants. But thanks for asking." Lara shot me a warning look. Her cousin Bree, tattooed and uncomfortable in this stuffy atmosphere, smirked from across the table. At least someone appreciated my sarcasm. "Of course, dear." Helena's smile could have frozen champagne. "I just worry about Lara's future. She's so talented, so beautiful. She deserves someone who can match her ambition." The words hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. Lara's father, meek as always, studied his plate like it contained the secrets of the universe. Bree cleared her throat. "Hayes just got promoted last month," Bree said. "Didn't you, Hayes?" "That's right. 15% raise, company car, full benefits package." I kept my voice level, but inside I was cataloging every slight, every dismissive glance. Helena waved her hand dismissively. "Money isn't everything, dear. It's about potential, about connections. Speaking of which, Lara, didn't you mention that lovely man from your office? Dax, wasn't it?" My wife's cheeks flushed pink. "Mother, please?" "Darren O'Brien," Helena continued, ignoring Lara's discomfort. "Such a successful hedge fund manager. Handsome, too, from what I've heard." That's when something inside me snapped. Not violently, more like a rubber band finally reaching its limit. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "You know what, Helena? You're absolutely right. Lara deserves better." I looked at my wife, who sat frozen with her mouth slightly open. "She deserves someone who won't sit here and take this garbage every holiday." "Hayes," Lara hissed, her voice sharp with embarrassment. "Don't talk back to my mother. If you can't respect her, get out." The room went silent, except for the ticking of Helena's antique clock. I nodded slowly, pulled my napkin from my lap, and placed it gently beside my plate. "You know what? I think I will." I walked to the coat closet, grabbed my jacket, and headed for the door. Behind me, I heard Helena's triumphant voice. "Well, I never." "No," I said, turning back one last time. "But I bet Lara has." The front door closed behind me with a satisfying click. In my car, I pulled out my phone and sent a text to Bree. "You still up for that favor?" Her response came immediately. "Always. Meet me at my place in an hour. Bring coffee." As I drove away from Helena's mansion, I found myself smiling for the first time in months. Lara had given me permission to leave. She just had no idea how far I was planning to go. Bree's apartment was everything Helena's house wasn't. Cluttered, warm, and honest. Empty pizza boxes competed for space with art supplies and vintage band posters. She opened the door wearing paint-splattered jeans and a knowing grin. "That was fast," she said, accepting the coffee I'd brought. "Even for you." "Your cousin made it easy. Told me to get out in front of God and Helena." I settled into her battered couch. "So, what's in this mysterious folder you've been promising me?" Bree disappeared into her bedroom and returned with a manila envelope thick enough to choke a horse. She dropped it on the coffee table between us. "Family group chat printouts, 3 months' worth." Her expression grew serious. "Hayes, some of this is going to hurt." I opened the folder and immediately understood why she'd warned me. Screenshots of text conversations between Lara, Helena, and several family members I barely knew. The first one was dated 2 weeks after my last promotion. Helena: "Lara needs to face facts. Hayes is holding her back." Lara: "I know, Mom, but it's complicated." Helena: "Nothing complicated about it. Dax is interested. He's successful, attractive, available. What more do you need?" Lara: "Time. I need time to figure out how to handle Hayes." I flipped through page after page. Helena orchestrating meetings between Lara and Dax. Lara complaining about my lack of ambition. Discussion of my embarrassing job and social awkwardness. 3 months of planning my replacement like I was a broken appliance. "There's more," Bree said quietly. She handed me a credit card statement. "Found this in Lara's purse last week when she asked me to grab her phone charger. Hotel charges, expensive restaurants, a jewelry store I'd never heard of. All on dates when Lara claimed to be working late or having girls' nights with her coworkers. I'm sorry, Hayes. I really am." I closed the folder and leaned back. The strange thing was, I felt relieved. For months, I'd been questioning myself. wondering why my wife seemed so distant, so critical. Now I knew it wasn't about me failing. It was about her planning my replacement. "Don't be sorry," I said. "This is exactly what I needed." "What are you going to do?" I stood up and tucked the folder under my arm. "Something I should have done a long time ago. I'm going to take your cousin's advice." "Which advice?" "Get out." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The drive back to our apartment took 20 minutes. I spent them planning. Lara wouldn't be home until Sunday evening. She always stayed at Helena's the night after Thanksgiving to help with cleanup and gossip. That gave me roughly 18 hours to execute what I was already thinking of as Operation Exit strategy. Our apartment was a study in contrasts. Lara's expensive taste dominated the living room. White leather furniture, abstract art, a coffee table that cost more than most people's cars. My contributions were relegated to the den and bedroom. Books, my father's old recliner, practical furniture that actually served a purpose. I started with the practical stuff: clothes, books, electronics, anything that was unquestionably mine. 3 hours later, I had 15 boxes packed and loaded into my truck. The apartment looked strangely hollow, like a stage set missing half its props. Next came the paperwork: bank statements, insurance documents, tax records. I photographed everything before packing it away. Lara had always handled our finances, claiming she was better with numbers. Now I understood why she'd wanted control. The joint checking account showed a balance of $12,000. I transferred $6,000 to my personal account, exactly half legally defensible. The savings account was trickier, $38,000, most of it from my bonuses and overtime. I transferred $20,000, leaving her with more than her contributions warranted, but less than she'd expect. My phone buzzed with a text from Red Trask, my friend from work. "How'd the family dinner go? Still married?" I called him instead of texting back. "Red, it's Hayes. I need a favor." "Sure, buddy. What's up?" "Can you help me move some boxes tomorrow? I'll pay you in pizza and beer." "Moving? What happened to domestic bliss?" "Turns out domestic bliss was just domestic fiction. I'll explain tomorrow." Red had been a firefighter before joining our logistics company. He understood emergencies, and more importantly, he understood loyalty. If I asked for help, he'd show up with a truck and no questions until the work was finished. I spent the rest of the evening systematically erasing myself from the apartment. Removed my name from the lease, legally, cleanly, with proper notice to the landlord. Forwarded my mail to a P.O. box I'd rented months ago during a moment of paranoia that now seemed like foresight. Transferred the utilities to Lara's name exclusively. By midnight, I was essentially a ghost. Present in the apartment, but no longer legally or financially connected to it, I sat in my father's recliner, one of the few things I hadn't packed, and reviewed Bree's folder one more time. The most recent messages were from yesterday morning, right before the Thanksgiving dinner. Helena. Remember, if Hayes causes any problems today, use it as an excuse. Lara. An excuse for what? Helena. To finally make the change we've been discussing. Dax won't wait forever. Lara. I know. I'm ready. I closed the folder and smiled. She was ready for change. Perfect. So was I. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Lara's name appeared on the screen. I watched it ring 4 times before going to voicemail. Then I turned the phone off and went to pack the rest of my life into boxes. Tomorrow, Lara would come home to discover exactly how ready for change I could be. Sunday evening arrived with the kind of gray drizzle that makes everything look like a noir film. I sat in the apartment's single remaining chair, a cheap folding thing I'd bought at a hardware store, waiting for Lara to come home. The empty rooms echoed with every sound, the refrigerator humming, traffic outside, the buildings settling around us. I'd spent the day at a storage facility, organizing my boxes with the methodical precision that made me good at my job. Everything labeled, everything in its place, everything ready for whatever came next. Red had helped without asking too many questions, though his raised eyebrows spoke volumes. "You sure about this?" he'd asked while we loaded the last box. More sure than I've been about anything in years. Now, sitting in the hollow shell of what used to be our home, I felt a calm I hadn't experienced in months. The folder from Bree sat on the kitchen counter, next to a printed copy of the lease transfer and bank statements showing the account changes. Evidence, documentation, the paper trail of a marriage's end. Lara's key turned in the lock at exactly 6:30. She was nothing if not punctual. "Hayes?" Her voice carried the particular tone she used when she expected to find me apologetic and ready to grovel. "Hayes, We need to talk about yesterday." Her heels clicked across the hardwood floor, then stopped. I heard her purse hit the ground. "What the hell?" I stood up slowly, folding the chair and leaning it against the wall. When I walked into the living room, Lara stood frozen in the doorway, staring at the empty space where our couch used to be. "Where's all our furniture?" Her voice climbed toward panic. "Where are your books? Your clothes?" "Gone." I kept my voice level, conversational. "You told me to get out, so I did." "I didn't mean—" She spun around, taking in the empty walls, the missing electronics, the gaps where my life used to be. "This is insane. You can't just move out because of one argument." "One argument?" I walked to the kitchen counter and picked up the folder. "Is that what we're calling 3 months of planning my replacement?" Her face went white. "I don't know what you're talking about." I opened the folder and read from the first page. Lara needs to face facts. Hayes is holding her back. I flipped to another page. Dax is interested. He's successful, attractive, available. Another page. Nothing complicated about it. With each quote, Lara seemed to shrink. Her expensive coat hung loose on her shoulders. Her perfectly styled hair looked suddenly fragile. "Where did you get those?" "Does it matter? The question is whether they're accurate." I set the folder down and faced her directly. "Are you having an affair with Darren O'Brien?" The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Outside, a car horn honked. Someone laughed on the street below. Normal sounds from a normal world that felt impossibly far away. "It's not what you think," she finally said. "Then explain it to me." "We've been having lunch, talking. He's been helping me with some investment ideas." I pulled out the credit card statement. "The Grandview Hotel, November 15th, $237. That's a lot of lunch." Her composure cracked. "You've been spying on me." "I've been paying attention, finally." I gestured around the empty apartment. "You wanted me gone, Lara. Your mother's been pushing for months, you've been planning it with your family, and yesterday you gave me permission, so here we are? This is ridiculous. We can work this out. We can go to counseling, we can... What? Pretend the last 3 months didn't happen? Pretend you weren't setting up my replacement while I was working overtime to pay for this place?" I shook my head. "I'm not interested in being your backup plan anymore." She started crying then, but they were angry tears, not sad ones. "You're throwing away 8 years of marriage because of some text messages?" "I'm not throwing anything away. You already did that." I walked to the door and picked up my jacket. "The lease is in your name now. So are the utilities. You've got $18,000 in the savings account and $6,000 in checking. That's more than fair. Where are you going to go?" "That's not your problem anymore." I was halfway to the door when she called after me. "Hayes, wait, please. We can fix this." I turned back one last time. She stood in the middle of the empty living room, looking small and lost, and nothing like the confident woman who'd dismissed me in front of her family. "You told me to get out, Lara. You just never asked how far I'd go." The door closed behind me with a soft click. In the hallway, I pulled out my phone and sent a text to Bree. "Phase 1 complete. Ready for Phase 2? Her response came immediately. "Already working on it. Dax won't know what hit him." As I walked to my truck, I felt lighter than I had in years. Lara wanted change. She was about to get more than she bargained for. Darren Dax O'Brien worked out at Elite Fitness on the north side of town, the kind of place where membership cost more than most people's rent, and the smoothie bar served organic everything. I'd spent 3 days learning his routine, thanks to Bree's social media reconnaissance and some old-fashioned observation. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, cardio and weights from 7 to 8:30. Tuesday and Thursday, personal trainer sessions. Weekends, tennis at the country club. The man was nothing if not predictable. I parked across the street from Elite Fitness at 6:45 on Wednesday morning, watching through the floor-to-ceiling windows as Dax worked his way through his routine. He was everything I wasn't. Tall, perfectly groomed, wearing workout clothes that probably cost more than my monthly car payment, the kind of man Helena would approve of. My phone buzzed with a text from Bree. "Video ready to upload. Just say when." The video in question was security footage from the Grandview Hotel, showing Lara and Dax entering a room together on 3 separate occasions. Bree had a friend who worked in hotel management, and apparently that friend had opinions about cheating spouses. The footage was perfectly legal to obtain and devastating in its clarity. At 8:20, Dax finished his workout and headed for the parking garage. I followed at a distance, my footsteps echoing off concrete walls. His car was exactly what I'd expected, a black BMW SUV with custom rims and a license plate that read Dax Man, subtle as a brick through a window. He was unlocking his car when I stepped out from behind a pillar. "Darren O'Brien?" He turned, sizing me up with the automatic assessment of a man used to measuring competition. "Yeah? Do I know you?" "Hayes Relin, Lara's husband." The color drained from his face, but he recovered quickly. "Look, man, I don't know what you think. I think you've been screwing my wife for 3 months. I kept my voice conversational, like we were discussing the weather. I think you've been using your hedge fund money to wine and dine her while I was working 60-hour weeks to keep her happy." He straightened up, trying to use his height advantage. "You're crazy if you think I'm going to stand here You're going to stand there and listen." I stepped closer, close enough that he had to look down to meet my eyes. "Because I've got video footage of you two at the Grandview Hotel, I've got credit card receipts, I've got text messages between my wife and her mother planning your little romance." His confidence wavered. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand something very clearly." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my keys. "My wife told me to get out of her life, so I did. Now I'm telling you the same thing." "You can't threaten me." "I'm not threatening you, Dax. I'm educating you." I walked over to his precious BMW and dragged my key along the driver's side door, leaving a deep scratch in the perfect paint. He lunged forward, but I was already moving to the rear tire. "Stop! That's a $60,000 car." "Was." I punctured the tire with a utility knife I'd brought for exactly this purpose. The hiss of escaping air echoed through the garage. "Now it's a $60,000 lesson." I moved to the next tire, then the next. Dax stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. When all 4 tires were flat, I walked back to where he stood. "Here's what's going to happen," I said calmly. "You're going to stop seeing my wife. You're going to stop calling her, texting her, taking her to expensive hotels. You're going to disappear from her life completely." "You're insane." "Maybe. But I'm also motivated." I leaned closer. "And if you think this is bad, wait until your wife finds out about your hotel adventures." His face went white. "My wife?" I pulled out an envelope and handed it to him. Copies of all the hotel receipts, restaurant bills, and a few choice text messages. "I was going to mail these to your house, but since you're here..." He opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside were photocopies of every piece of evidence Bree and I had gathered, along with a cover letter addressed to Mrs. Catherine O'Brien, explaining her husband's extracurricular activities. "You wouldn't." "Try me." I started walking toward my truck, then turned back. "Oh, and Dax, next time you want to steal someone's wife, make sure her husband isn't smarter than you think he is." I left him standing next to his ruined car, holding evidence of his own destruction. As I drove away, I called Bree. "Upload the video," I said. "To where?" "Everywhere. Social media, local gossip sites, anywhere people might recognize him. Let's see how Elite Fitness feels about members who can't keep their marriage vows." "Hayes, are you sure about this?" "Once it's out there?" "I'm sure. Lara wanted me gone so she could upgrade. Time for her to see what her upgrade is really worth." By the time I got to work, the video was live on 3 different platforms. By lunch, it had been shared 47 times. By evening, Dax's reputation as the town's most eligible bachelor was history. Red found me in the break room, scrolling through comments on my phone. "You look pleased with yourself," he said. "Just having a good day." This wouldn't have anything to do with that video of some guy getting his car trashed, would it? The one that's all over Facebook? I looked up at him with my most innocent expression. "I have no idea what you're talking about." Red grinned and sat down across from me. "Sure you don't. So what's next in this master plan of yours?" "Next, I think it's time for a family reunion." Helena's call came on Friday afternoon, her voice dripping with false sweetness and barely controlled rage. "Hayes, dear, I think we need to have a conversation." "About what, Helena?" "About this ridiculous tantrum you're throwing. Lara is beside herself. She's been crying for days." I leaned back in my office chair, watching traffic crawl past my window. "That's unfortunate. Maybe she should call Dax for comfort." The silence on the other end was deafening. When Helena spoke again, her voice had lost all pretense of warmth. "You need to come to dinner Sunday. We're going to sort this mess out like adults." "Sunday dinner sounds lovely. What time?" 6 o'clock. "And Hayes, don't bring any more of your dramatics. This family has had quite enough." She hung up before I could respond. I immediately called Bree. "Helena just invited me to Sunday dinner. Family meeting to sort out the mess." That's either very brave or very stupid of her. With Helena, it's usually both. Are you going to be there? Wouldn't miss it. I've been looking forward to this conversation for months. Sunday evening arrived with the kind of bitter cold that makes your breath visible and your fingers numb. Helena's house looked exactly the same as it had the previous week, but somehow felt different, more like a battlefield than a home. Lara's car was in the driveway, along with her father's sedan and Bree's beat-up Honda. The whole family gathered for my public execution. I almost felt sorry for them. Helena answered the door wearing her most intimidating outfit: black dress, pearls, the expression of a woman accustomed to getting her way. Behind her, I could see Lara pacing in the living room like a caged animal. "Hayes, so good of you to come?" "Wouldn't miss it, Helena. I love family gatherings." The living room felt like a courtroom. Helena sat in her throne-like chair, Lara perched on the edge of the couch, her father hunched in the corner looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Bree lounged in the window seat, barely concealing her amusement. "Now then," Helena began, "I think it's time we address this situation like reasonable adults." Which situation would that be? I settled into the chair across from her, the same one I'd occupied during countless previous interrogations. "This childish tantrum you're throwing, moving out, destroying property, embarrassing the family with your accusations." "Accusations?" I pulled out my phone and opened the video that had been making rounds on social media. "You mean like this one?" I turned the screen toward the room. The security footage from the Grandview Hotel played in perfect clarity. Lara and Dax entering a room together, his hand on her lower back, her laughing at something he whispered in her ear. Lara gasped. Her father's face turned red. Helena's expression didn't change, but her knuckles went white where she gripped her chair. "Where did you get that?" Lara demanded. "The same place I got these?" I pulled out the folder of text messages and spread them across Helena's coffee table like a deck of cards. 3 months of planning. 3 months of setting up my replacement while I worked overtime to pay for your lifestyle. Helena finally spoke. "Even if this is all true, and I'm not saying it is, that doesn't give you the right to destroy other people's property." "Other people's property?" I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. "Helena, you spent 3 months telling my wife I was worthless. You orchestrated meetings with her boyfriend. You planned my replacement like I was a broken appliance." "I was looking out for Lara's best interests." "No, you were looking out for your own interests. You wanted a son-in-law you could control, someone who'd kiss your ring and pretend your opinion mattered." The room went quiet. Helena's face flushed with anger. "How dare you speak to me that way in my own home?" "The same way you've been speaking about me in your text messages." I stood up and walked to the mantelpiece, where family photos displayed decades of Trenwall superiority. "You called me a failure, Helena. You said I was holding Lara back. You said she deserved better." "She does deserve better. Then she's got it now." I turned back to face the room. "I'm out of her life, just like you wanted. She's free to pursue her hedge fund prince without any interference from her worthless husband." Lara finally found her voice. "Hayes, please. We can work through this. The thing with Dax, it was just what? Just 3 months of hotel rooms and expensive dinners? Just planning to leave me while I paid your bills?" I shook my head. "You told me to get out, Lara. In front of your whole family, you told me to leave. So I did." "I didn't mean forever." "Then you should have been more specific." Bree spoke for the first time since I'd arrived. "Maybe we should talk about what happens next." Everyone turned to look at her. She was holding her phone, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "What do you mean?" Helena asked. "Well, Hayes isn't the only one with secrets." Bree's smile widened. "Turns out the Trenwall Family Trust has some interesting financial irregularities. Embezzlement, actually. About $200,000 over the past 5 years. Helena's face went white. "That's impossible." "Is it? Because I've got bank records, transfer documents, forged signatures on withdrawal slips." Bree stood up and walked to the coffee table, adding her own folder to the collection. Funny thing about having friends in the banking industry. They notice patterns. The room erupted. Helena demanding to know where Bree got the information, Lara asking what this meant for the family finances, her father looking like he might have a heart attack. Through it all, I sat quietly, watching my wife's world collapse around her. "The best part," Bree continued, raising her voice above the chaos, "is that this information goes public tomorrow morning. Local newspaper, social media, probably the district attorney's office." "You can't do this," Helena whispered. "Actually, I can, and I am." Bree looked directly at me. Unless, of course, Hayes decides he wants to be merciful. Every eye in the room turned to me. Helena, desperate and cornered. Lara, pleading silently for salvation. Her father, terrified of scandal. Bree, waiting for my decision. I stood up slowly and walked to the door. "Hayes," Lara called after me. "Please, don't let her do this." I turned back one last time. You told me to get out if I couldn't respect your family. Turns out you were right. I can't respect people who lie, cheat, and steal from their own relatives. But we're still married. We're still family. No, Lara, we're still legally married, but we stopped being family the day you decided I wasn't good enough for your future. I opened the front door and stepped into the cold night air. Behind me, I heard Helena's voice, shrill with panic. Hayes, come back here. We need to discuss this. But I was already walking to my truck, leaving the Trenwall family to sort out their own mess. As I drove away, my phone buzzed with a text from Bree. That was beautiful. Dinner tomorrow to celebrate? I typed back, absolutely, but let's make it somewhere expensive. I'm feeling generous. For the first time in years, I was looking forward to tomorrow. The construction site on Maple Street had been abandoned for 6 months, a half-finished office building surrounded by chain-link fence and warning signs. It was perfect for what I had in mind, isolated, dramatic, and symbolic of projects that never reached completion. I'd spent a week setting up my final scene, portable lights borrowed from Red's firefighting equipment, a sound system connected to my truck's battery, folding chairs arranged like an amphitheater, all the props needed for the last act of my marriage. The invitation went out Tuesday morning, sent from an anonymous email account to both Lara and Dax. If you want to end this situation quietly, meet me at the Maple Street construction site Thursday at 8 p.m. Come alone, bring checkbooks. I knew they'd come. Lara was desperate to contain the damage to her reputation, and Dax was facing his own reckoning at home. His wife had received her copy of the hotel receipts, and according to Bree's sources, she'd already contacted a divorce attorney. Thursday evening arrived with a light snow that made everything look clean and new. I got to the site at 7:30, turned on the portable lights, and tested the sound system. Classical music echoed off the concrete walls, something dramatic and fitting for the occasion. Lara arrived first, driving her white sedan carefully through the construction entrance. She parked near the building and sat in her car for several minutes, probably gathering courage or checking her makeup. When she finally got out, she looked smaller than I remembered, wrapped in an expensive coat that couldn't quite hide her nervousness. Hayes? Her voice echoed in the empty space. What is this about? Closure, I called back from my position on the second floor. Come on up. The stairs are safe. She climbed slowly, her heels clicking against concrete steps. When she reached the second floor, she stopped and stared at my setup. The lights, the chairs, the sound system playing Vivaldi in the background. This is insane. What are you trying to prove? Nothing. I'm past the proving stage. I gestured to one of the folding chairs. Have a seat. We're waiting for one more guest. Dax arrived 10 minutes later, his replacement BMW gleaming under the portable lights. He climbed the stairs with the swagger of a man trying to convince himself he wasn't afraid. Relin, what the hell is this supposed to be? A business meeting. I turned off the music and faced both of them. You two have been conducting your affair in secret for months. I thought it was time we discussed terms openly. Lara and Dax exchanged glances. She looked mortified. He looked calculating. What kind of terms? Dax asked. Simple ones. Lara wants a divorce so she can be with you. I'm willing to give her one. But there are conditions. I pulled out a manila folder and set it on a makeshift table between the chairs. First, the divorce is uncontested. No alimony, no shared assets beyond what I've already agreed to. Second, you both sign confidentiality agreements about our marriage and separation. Third, you pay for your own mistakes. What does that mean? Lara asked. It means Dax pays for the damage to his car, the hotel bills, and the cost of his wife's divorce attorney. It means you pay for the apartment lease, the credit card bills, and the family therapy your father's going to need when Helena's embezzlement charges go public. Dax stood up abruptly. I'm not paying for anything. You're the one who went crazy and... Sit down. Something in my voice made him freeze. I'd never spoken to anyone with that kind of authority before, but months of anger had given me a new edge. You're going to sit down, and you're going to listen, because I'm the one holding all the cards here. I walked to the edge of the floor where the building opened onto empty space. See, the thing about being underestimated your whole life is that people don't see you coming. I turned back to face them. Helena thought I was too stupid to figure out your affair. You thought I was too weak to fight back. Lara thought I was too dependent to leave. Hayes, Lara said quietly, please, we can work this out reasonably. Reasonably? I laughed. You spent 3 months planning to replace me, and now you want to be reasonable? I walked back to the table and opened the folder. Inside were divorce papers, confidentiality agreements, and a detailed financial settlement. Here's what's going to happen. You're both going to sign these documents. Dax is going to transfer $50,000 to cover the costs of this mess. Lara is going to take responsibility for all joint debts. and then you're both going to disappear from my life forever. $50,000. Dax's voice cracked. That's insane. That's the cost of stealing another man's wife. Consider it tuition for your education and consequences. And if we refuse? Lara asked. I smiled and pulled out my phone. Then tomorrow morning, every person in this town gets to see the security footage of your hotel visits, read the text messages about your affair, and learn about Helena's embezzlement. Your reputation, your career, your family's social standing, all of it becomes public entertainment. The silence stretched between us like a wire under tension. Snow continued to fall outside, visible in the harsh glare of the portable lights. Finally, Dax reached for a pen. Where do I sign? One by one, they worked through the documents. Lara's signature was shaky, Dax's was angry slashes across paper. When they finished, I collected everything and tucked it back into the folder. Congratulations, I said. You're free to be together. I hope it was worth what it cost. Lara stood up slowly. Hayes, I want you to know. I don't care what you want me to know. We're finished, Lara. Completely and permanently finished. She nodded and walked toward the stairs. At the top, she turned back one last time. I really did love you once. I know. That's what makes this so perfect. After they left, I sat alone in the construction site, listening to snow fall on concrete and steel. My phone buzzed with a text from Bree. How did it go? I typed back. It's over, finally, completely over. Celebratory drinks? Absolutely. But first, I need to return some equipment to Red. As I packed up the lights and sound system, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace. Not happiness exactly, but the deep satisfaction of a job completed correctly. Lara had told me to get out. I'd taken her advice and gone further than she'd ever imagined. Now she was free to build her new life with Dax, and I was free to build mine without either of them. The snow was falling harder as I loaded my truck and drove away from the construction site. In my rearview mirror, the abandoned building disappeared into the darkness, taking the last remnants of my marriage with it. Tomorrow would be the first day of whatever came next. Tonight, I was going to buy my friend Red a beer and toast the end of being underestimated. Some bridges are meant to be burned. Others you demolish completely, just to make sure no one can ever cross them again.